So let me get this straight. A Salvadorian migrant illegally crosses the border into the U.S. Then many years later, he gets exposed as an MS-13 gang member. At some point, his wife files a restraining order against him. And eventually, the Trump administration is able to deport him back to El Salvador. But somehow, the woke and fake mainstream media is now defending this criminal. In addition to the Democrats, of course. The Democrats love to be on the wrong side of everything and anything that is anti-American. Well, that's the story of Salvadorian migrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is now in El Salvador, more specifically in the CECOT prison. And so the woke media is going nuts, along with the Democratic Party. Obviously, there are many other details to this story, of which we're going to discuss right now. So let's get started. Well, as you know, the Trump administration is trying their best to clean up the mess that Joe Biden left behind, but we currently have a lot of woke judges getting in the way.
One of the biggest things that we've been following today has been this opinion that was delivered by Judge Boasberg. This is in regards to that Alien Enemies Act case. This was the judge who told the administration to turn those planes that were bound for El Salvador around. Well, this was his opinion here. Quote, rather than comply with the court's order, the government continued the hurried removal operation. Early Sunday morning, hours after the order issued, it transferred 2 plane loads of passengers protected by the TRO into a Salvadoran mega prison. The White House responding to that saying, quote, we plan to seek immediate appellate relief. The president is 100% committed to ensuring that terrorists and criminal illegal migrants are no longer a threat to Americans and their communities across the country. The bottom line is that that judge says that he believes that there's probable cause in order to hold the administration in contempt of court for disobeying the court's orders there. So that is something that the administration is continuing to dig their heels in on.
But the mainstream media is freaking out. Check out these headlines. They refer to him as the Maryland man. And it's just article after article trying to make him look like a victim. I mean, if anything, you would think he was an American man from Maryland. It's insane. But here is the moment when CNN got demolished at the White House during Salvadorian President Bukele's visit.
Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CB.
Thank you, President. Do you plan to ask President Bukele to help return the man who your administration says was mistakenly deported? The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador?
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, 2 courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs, if they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
And you are doing a great job. Thank you. Wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. when President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for him to get him back?
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
Well,
no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
What an embarrassment that the American media can even ask such a question. I mean, how stupid can you be? So you're saying that someone who crossed the border illegally and it's been exposed for being a gang member was deported back to their home country, and now they're like, well, why don't you bring him back home? No, he's home already. That's where he's from, and he committed crimes in the U.S., and that's why he is now detained in CECOT. But here is Salvadorian President Bukele's response.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right?
It's always
how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you could release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. I mean, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. I mean, we just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our
country. I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah,
they're sick. These are sick people.
I love that response. These are sick people. That's right. But it is sickening. Again, quite embarrassing in front of the Salvadorian president. How does that even make sense? Bring him back home. No, he is home. He entered the country illegally. Look, forget about him being a gang member, which you shouldn't, but let's just pretend he wasn't. He illegally crossed the border. Therefore, he committed a federal crime. How many more court appearances do you need? If he illegally crossed the border, he should be sent back immediately. That's the problem we have right now. I mean, if anything, the American people are the ones who are being affected the most by these violent criminals. We have so many victims. And we also have the Angel Moms who are witnessing this massacre. For example, check out this response of this Angel Mom reacting to the Democratic senator traveling to El Salvador.
Why are we not protecting the American citizens? It's just common sense. Why are we not protecting our children? And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledged my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen? Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And
It's beyond disgraceful. And here's a story about the senator.
a lot of new developments to unpack here at this hour. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we just spoke with the senator about an hour ago as he arrived here to Dulles International Airport, was heading to security. He should be in the air in about the next 30 minutes on his way to El Salvador. He said his goal here is to continue to shine a light on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case. He is hoping to meet with some high-ranking government officials when he gets to El Salvador. He would also like to see Abrego Garcia himself in person in the prison. They have put in all of those requests. He did say that as of yet, they do not have those meetings confirmed. They've been working through the embassy up until this point, and they're hoping to get more of those details locked in once they touch down. They are expecting to be there for about a few days. Now, he did want to meet with El Salvador President Bukele when he was here in the United States. He wasn't able to. He's trying to meet with him once he is there, again, working to get that confirmed.
Good Lord. Well, here he is again.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting to bring Abrego Garcia home until he returns to his family. I hope to meet with representatives of the government. I hope to have the chance to actually see Kilmar and see what his condition is. But we are going to keep fighting because this is a miscarriage of justice. The Supreme Court has ruled 9-0, that he was illegally taken out of the country and put in a prison in El Salvador. And this is about due process. This is about rule of law. What bullies do is they begin by picking on the most vulnerable. But if we get rid of the rule of law, due process in the United States, it's a short road from there to tyranny.
Right, again. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia illegally crossed the border into the U.S., and then he was illegally deported back to his home country in El Salvador. Yeah, it's just crystal clear. So please, Senator Chris Van Hollen, step forward. You are the donkey of the week.
Donkey!
Here are the facts. Please pay attention.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested. He was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with two other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And two separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed. And just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for 2 instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here. The court ordered that the respondent committed the following acts of abuse. Once in May of 2021, assault in any degree. And on May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside, the basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again. And the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the President of the United States and the Secretary of State could not be compelled to forcibly retrieve this citizen of El Salvador who is currently locked up in a maximum security prison in his home country due to his MS-13 membership.
He is not coming back to our country. President Bukele said he was not sending him back. That's the end of the story. There was no situation ever where he was going to stay in this country. None. None.
No, I don't feel bad, and neither should you. This Salvadorian criminal should stay locked up, and he'll never, ever come into this country again. And as for the Democrats, well, no wonder why their approval ratings is so low right now. And maybe Senator Chris Van Hollen should go back to El Salvador and stay there and run for office, for any political office, because he seems to care more about the Salvadorian people than the American people. We'll gladly replace him, and fairly quickly. Thank you for watching. Please smash the like button, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. And a very special thank you to those of you who go the extra mile to support this content. I truly appreciate it. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We do now have to get to some breaking news that just came into our newsroom. Want to put this post up from the X accounts of the Senator Van Hollen. Want to put this up. This is key in this fight to get this Maryland man who was wrongfully deported back to El Salvador to the United States. I want to read out what this tweet says. He said, I said the main goal of this trip was to meet with Kilmar. Tonight, I had the chance. I have called his wife, Jennifer, to pass along this message of love. I look forward to providing a full update on my return. We also heard from El Salvador President Nayib Bukele, who posted images of the meeting just minutes before Van Hollen shared his post as well. Do want to put this up on your screen as well, what we have from that X account. Showing you there, he said, now that he has been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. The tweet, though, ended with emojis and the U.S. and Salvador flags. Another one he also put up there on the screen, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, miraculously there, risen from the death camps and torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen.
In a sweatshirt with gang insignia on it. The guy he was with, another MS-13 known member, had a tattoo with very similar insignia on it. ICE declared him as a member of MS-13. The police officers, the gang unit, declared him as a member of MS-13. And also, they independently went to a reliable, confidential informant who said not only is he a member of MS-13, he gave them the clique, the Westerns, and he was called a Chiqueo, which is one of the higher-ranking MS-13 members. So they rightfully detained him, rightfully.